Hey, Jeff, first of all, good to see you, bud. How you been?
Good, good to see you too. I've been great. Great to talk to you. Great to see you again too.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me on your show. So that's a good thing about radio, the Big Jab up in Portland, Maine. You and your brother are still going at it every Saturday.
Yes, we are, and that's been the good thing about sports talk radio is even though sports did kind of shut down for a little while, we still had some things to talk about, whether it was just local leagues, local athletes trying to compete in some way, or just trying to sports trying to get back in
Yeah.
some form. Allowed us, at least for those few months, to continually have a show, and that's nice. I'm thankful though that we only had one show a week rather than 5 days a week. I think that was hard for for Shu and Joe in the morning, and for Hav and Chris in the afternoon, who work 5 days a week. They're all good at what they do, but just having the one day a week at least was good, because you could focus on other things, but also kind of keep it light and keep it sports related too,
Yep.
because if you were doing it every day, it was hard to not veer into other areas. But we at least could keep it for the most part right to sports, and when are they going to be back, and when are they going to be looking like sports again.
Yeah. Now, I was going to say once a week. I mean, even with sports going full time, you have to beat that horse every day. So that once a week thing is actually nice because you have, if something happens on Sunday, when I did the show, you have the whole week. You start your minds by Saturday. You say, you know what? I got a different angle here. You
Mm-hmm.
change during the course of the week, right?
Exactly, and that's a good thing, I think, about the week long thing. It does give you time to process things, which is good. It has been very, very rare for the most part that that things kind of break during our 7 to 11 window on Saturday. The last big thing really that did was Tuukka Rask leaving the Bruins right before a game,
Hmm.
that happened right as a show was ending. And I guess, unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, the Cam Newton announcement just a couple of weeks ago happened about 2 minutes after we finished up our show, so we couldn't talk about it that day. But which, as far as I'm concerned, is fine. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it took up a lot of bandwidth when it came to sports talk radio here in New England. As soon as that happened, and continues to.
I love the fact you do your show with your brother Taylor. Taylor's a baseball guy. I know you're a hockey guy. I mean, you guys both like a lot of sports, but that's a pretty cool dynamic that you did with that show to bring him in. And I think having two brothers is great because it's real, and a lot of emotions are raw and real.
Yeah, it was very unique, and the opportunity of how it all came about was a little bit surprising. I know, and I mean, you know both of us, Mike, and I'm extremely thankful now to be able to have the opportunity to do a radio show with my younger brother Taylor, who's 11 years younger than me, and we have different mothers. And so it's, I mean, we're brothers, but we grew up apart,
Yeah.
basically. And so this is kind of the best opportunity we've had as adults to really not just create a brother family relationship, but a good working relationship as well. And I know 10 years ago this was not something I had envisioned. I don't think he did either. It was kind of once he got into adulthood and did some other things and was able to eventually go to college that he decided, sports was kind of something he liked, and he saw what I was doing, and decided he kind of wanted to follow in the footsteps. And we had the opportunity for me to bring him on after I picked up another broadcast job that was going to take me away from the Saturday show for a lot of winter days, because we brought him on right around the time I got the University of Maine men's hockey broadcasting job for television here in the state of Maine. So that was going to require, a lot of time spent in Orono on weekends, which is 2 hours away from Portland. So it doesn't exactly make a whole lot of sense to be traveling back and forth like that all the time to do a Saturday morning radio show. So just to have some extra backup, I said, hey, can we have a co-host for the show? And thankfully, management at Atlantic Coast Radio was completely on board when I said I'd like it to be my younger brother. And
Yeah.
it's gone really well. I think he adds a great deal to the show, and it adds a different, I think, component that I think has been missing a little bit from the Big Jab programming, and that's younger listenership.
Definitely.
Sports talk radio is very much an older male skewing field, but there's audiences there in other places, and that's part of the reason why I wanted a younger voice, but also to be able to just tap into the way that I'd say millennials and Generation Z think about sports, which I think is very, very different than the way that maybe your baby boomers think about sports.
Yeah, I like it. So I think the best thing too, what you guys do is you're yourselves. So I think there's a notion in this business that you have to be maybe like everyone else, or you try to be someone other than who you are. And I've learned that being who you are, that's what, I mean, you're called an on-air personality. I mean, the title's written out. You two are who you are. I know you guys off the air, and I think that's really good to bring because people start to know that. I don't think you can trick people anymore. And they know that you two are who, they meet you, go, that's the same guy I met. He's the same guy off the air. Well, you should be in a way, right?
Right. I absolutely think you should, and part of the reason that I like to do things the way I do and we want to be authentic is because it's bothered me seeing some of these, fake personalities. I wrote a blog about it once and called them bombastic sports bros. And that to me is something that has really arisen, and I think it's an issue in more than just sports talk radio of, the most eyeballs is the most outlandish thing we can say or do. And that to me is not the way to do things and develop an audience over time. Yeah, it might pop for a week or two, but after that, you have to come up with the next, off the wall thing or topic to discuss to be able to keep that sort of thing going. And that's not something that I want to do. I've been around sports media, or at least media in general, pretty much since I was a kid, from both sides of my family. And so I kind of do have that old school ethic of just show up and do the job and do it well and be yourself and just do what you think is the right thing to do, and the audience will come. The listenership will come, and I think over time that is exactly what's occurred. I'm in this for the long term. I'm not in this for short term ratings as far as I'm concerned. I want to build a long term audience that really appreciates what we do and knows that when there's a big happening in the sports world, that you're going to get a take that's well thought out, that's reasoned, as opposed to, just kind of reading the headline and screaming bloody murder about whatever you think in that moment.
Yeah, I can't stand it. I don't know why it's gone that way. I think you and I are unique. So we'll get into this. Jeff's a hockey guy, play-by-play, kind of raised in the business that way. I'm a baseball guy, raised that way. When we do play-by-play, I mean, you kind of develop a personality. Certainly on the air, I have a persona, but it's truthful. And then when I always did sports talk radio, I never understood why you can't be in the middle of something, why you can't be gray, why you can't say, well, this or that. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it just, sometimes when you're over the top with a take, it doesn't sound authentic, because it's okay to say you don't know something. I don't think a listener would think less of you. You don't have to be yes or no. I think that can be a better conversation, right? A little bit in the middle.
Yeah, I think so too. You kind of, and there are so many instances where I see that. I remember the big one that kind of really drew me to that opinion, a very, very similar one to yours, was the discussion a few years ago before Washington changed their nickname to just football team as opposed to the derogatory term Redskins. And I just took so many calls about people saying, well, it shouldn't be an offensive term. It's not meant in that way. And what I came around to in talking to people about it is, well, it's not really on any of us to tell another person what is offensive to them or what should be offensive to them. And that has really made me think about an awful lot of things. And I know politics are a lot bigger in sports now. We had Black Lives Matter on the court at the NBA bubble. So those sorts of things are there, and but it is okay to kind of say it's all right to make the statement, while at the same time, boy, it's awfully annoying that we have to see all this stuff right now.
Yeah.
It can be both at the same time, and I think it's important to come across that way in sports talk, but I mean, really in life, it's the same type of thing. And I think it would be so much better if we could all just kind of get to, okay, I may have a different perspective, but at least I can appreciate yours too, and not think you're a horrible person just because I disagree with you.
Yeah. I've talked to a lot of people about this. I think we're just very insecure now as a nation. I don't know why. I mean, you should be able to, if somebody has told me about, you might want to do this more, this to help in what I'm doing. I mean, I would want that. I don't want, when I worked in Portland, I didn't want every fan to say how great you are all the time, because for me, you don't get better. You want, and this is another thing, constructive criticism, but I still think it works into just talking with somebody. There's a lot of tension now. And I think it's been like that before. It's been like this for a while. And I don't know why that's happened. I don't know if it's social media. I know we do blame things, but I still think it's people that, you could say, well, Twitter's bad, but I don't use Twitter that way. You don't. I enjoy what you put out. So I don't know. We're on the defense. That's a mystery to me. I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure you don't either.
No, I certainly don't either. I mean, and it's funny too, just because a lot of the things that we talk about in the country, like, we think we're the best at things.
Yeah.
So where does the insecurity come from? If the way we do things is the best and all that, then why are we so insecure about it?
I don't know.
And about our own positions and things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time, but I think it's good because it's opening up conversations. I think it's getting people to get indulged with stuff that maybe we weren't talking about. I mean, I think about, I'm 47. As a kid, there are a lot of things right now that you would not talk about to your parents, or you wouldn't admit. So I do like that part of it. All right. Your background. I mean, for me, being a baseball guy, I was exposed to it super early age. I know your passion for hockey. I'm assuming it's kind of the same deal. You kind of grew up loving it and you wanted to be a part of it.
Exactly. That's really what it came down to for me. And I guess from a very young age, you would say I knew I was really into sports. I knew I was really into the broadcasting element of it. As I said, it comes from both sides of my family. My father was on television as a meteorologist for 25 years in Maine, but my grandfather, from the other side, started WAGM television station in Presque Isle, which still operates to this day. And he broadcast high school basketball in Aroostook County in northern Maine for a good 25 or 30 years or so. So I guess I kind of always had that little bug. Hockey was the sport I think I kind of settled on as my favorite, just because it was the most fun for me to watch. Yeah. When I was a kid, it had the most going on. It combined so many different elements. It combines speed, it combines grace with power and violence and emotion and all these sorts of things. And as a little kid growing up in northern Maine, I had, in other parts of Maine, you didn't necessarily have access to CBC from Canada, and I did. in northern Maine. So I grew up watching Hockey Night in Canada every Saturday night. And that's what really made me love hockey. I mean, growing up, I saw, more Montreal Canadiens and Toronto Maple Leafs games than I did Boston Bruins games. I still became a Bruins fan because my father's from Boston and he drilled that into me very early. We root for the Boston Bruins. So that became the team that I obviously grew up watching. And the fact that the University of Maine became a national powerhouse when I was real young too, I think really helped that. Sean Walsh built the University of Maine hockey program from, kind of a nothing program in the mid 1980s into, by 1993, arguably the greatest college hockey team that's ever been assembled. And people still say that to this day. They went 42-1-2 in 45 games while winning a national championship. And Paul Correa was the leading player on that team. He's now a Hockey Hall of Famer. So, and that was what I grew up watching. And I got lucky enough when I was, during that year when they won the national championship in 1993, that my mom, who I was raised by as an only child, and I was her only kid, so it was basically the two of us when I grew up my whole time. But she, in her own career path, needed to get a couple new degrees, and she needed to move me from northern Maine to Orono, to the University of Maine, where she was going to get those degrees. So by her doing that, I got the chance through, her being a student and getting tickets to sporting events, basically as part of her fees, we could go to those games. And she was not a hockey fan at all. She knew I liked it, but just going to a few of those games with that team, she became a giant hockey fan and was for the rest of her life.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I feel like that prepares any broadcaster, but the wealth of knowledge, and that is almost like the books that you studied. Because I've talked to many, and I have kind of the same story too, growing up watching it and all that. That's how you become, I think, a broadcaster. Obviously, you have to love the sport at a ridiculous level, but you had all that training that you probably didn't even realize helped your career.
No, absolutely. I mean, I grew up kind of, and I would take whatever sort of medium I could to kind of do it and do it for myself, whether it was like an air hockey table where I'd just kind of hit two things between one another and call different players' names, to just kind of running around my own living room with whatever I could find and like playing with a stick and a puck and calling names. That's the sort of thing that I kind of did when I was on my own.
Yeah.
And I think it did absolutely prepare me. The first time I stepped inside a booth, onto a press row to call a game was my third, it was the third week of the college hockey season, but it was like my sixth week at the University of Maine as a student, and I was ready. And I was ready for it. There were a few other broadcasters besides me that season, but as people could tell right away as soon as I was calling games that, wow, like you're better than most college kids that do this. And I'd only done it the one time. And, I still have those original tapes because my mom was good enough to record them for me off the radio. And, obviously they're much worse now compared to where I am at the moment. But for at least that time, for somebody who hadn't done it before, people thought I had something. So that was gratifying for sure. And I've kind of always wanted to do the hockey broadcast thing as a career path. So that was very good. And I've been able to continue it for the most part for mostly my entire adult life.
Yeah. So, I mean, your career path, I know it's gone into kind of different ways. You did it in college, you did it in the minor leagues. And then when the Pirates kind of folded up, you kind of were left in the cold, but now you're back doing, UMaine hockey on TV. You're doing some other hockey stuff. So how are you right now feeling doing what you're doing and not being at the, because I don't think if you're not doing it professionally, but you're at a great school, college, for my opinion, I think that's just as good.
I think it is, and especially now with the way the industry is going. And I'll be honest, growing up, radio was really all I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And as I said, my father was on television for so long, and again, I come from divorced parents, so I didn't see him as much as I did my mom, and especially when I was young, and he had first started in Maine and became popular. We could not go out without him being stopped somewhere to say, "Oh gosh, you're great," and that's awesome. But at the same time, radio I could see gave you a little bit more anonymity. People
Yeah.
wouldn't stop you all the time when you're out there because they don't see your face.
Yep.
So that in part kind of made me gravitate a little bit more towards radio than television. But now with, streaming being such a big thing on the internet, and I think a lot of sports are going to go in that direction. I think more sports broadcasting is going to be video based as opposed to audio only. So jumping into television now, I think is a good thing. And I also think, especially as that happens more and more, I think most of the announcers that come through the minor league ranks and all that, and eventually get to Major League Baseball or to the National Hockey League, NBA, NFL, are going to be doing it through video-based applications rather than audio-only based applications. So I think I'm in there at a good time, and also at a time when college hockey is becoming even more popular. It's on television nationally a lot more. There are more universities that are creating programs. 10 years ago, we did not have any major conferences sponsoring college hockey. It was all specific hockey-related conferences that were at the Division I level. Now we have a Big Ten hockey conference. That is a huge deal for the sport of college hockey. And Arizona State now has a varsity program. They're not affiliated with any conference yet, but they've been to an NCAA tournament already, and they've only been in existence for 3 years at the varsity level. And there's all sorts of talk out there that there's going to be other bigger universities jumping in. The University of Illinois might at some point relatively soon. Long Island University in New York City is starting a program up this winter. So there's a lot of growth in college hockey. It's becoming more of a national, kind of a broadcast property than it was before. And I think you're going to start to see more National Hockey League voices coming from those ranks because of the television exposure, as opposed to people coming almost exclusively through the ECHL, the American Hockey League, where I was. I actually think I'm fairly well positioned if I'm able to get to the National Hockey League to be able to do it from where I'm
at. I couldn't agree with you more. College baseball is becoming that, and it was either the Twins or the Brewers who hired their TV voice right out of college baseball program. Mm-hmm. It's so funny that you bring up the audio part going away. I had the same thought the other day. And listen, I've been in radio, but I look at the value of it now. Minor league teams pay to be on the radio. I don't know if there's value in that anymore, but I look at value in the streaming things that we have now. People are watching on Twitch, watching people play video games. You could make an interactive broadcast on Facebook Live where they could see you, they could see the game, and it would just be more, it would be better, I think. And I was having the same thoughts that there's more you can do. You can make a complete interactive broadcast, which would appeal to your point, younger people. But I think it's time, the person bringing the radios to the games. I don't know if that's as strong as it once was. Definitely happens. But couldn't there be a way to create an interactive listening, even at the arenas?
Oh,
the phones,
Absolutely. And we're seeing teams do it. I know I've, one of my good friends from hockey broadcasting here, Mike McKenna, who you probably remember from his day was with the Portland Pirates, just retired as a hockey player a couple years, well, now it's a little more than a year ago. But he immediately jumped into broadcasting, and he's an analyst now on the television broadcast with the Vegas Golden Knights in the NHL. And a lot of what Mike was doing here during the playoffs was basically doing a second screen experience for people, kind of being there in a studio and analyzing things, but also just kind of having fun and interacting with fans. And I thought it was really innovative and fun what they were doing. And I think that's something that probably can be built upon and other teams can do as well. And I do think that's kind of the way we're going to continue to see the innovation. And I do think that's an important element, because one thing that is important for you and I is to create some kind of a connection with the fan base. And if we can do it kind of virtually in real time, that only enhances that relationship for the fan.
And I think that it's better to quantify. So, for example, in Pawtucket, we were doing those sim broadcasts. Our numbers on Facebook Live and Periscope were through the roof.
Yeah.
We can bring that to somebody, and they can, and there's no, you can generate actual numbers now. And I know companies are spending money with influencers based on, they can get right into your Twitter account and they can see an algorithm and analytics to show what you're generating. And I think it's beneficial now to both parties that we can say, hey, look at this Facebook Live we just did from Fenway. Look what it generated. Look how many views. And I agree with you. I think there's so much now that, and you can create, anybody can create something. That's what I love now. You can go on YouTube Live. The video game industry, I just go back to that because I remember playing video games as a kid and you got made fun of by your parents or they're stupid. And now you can major in that. So who would have thought that, video games would become a professional sport somewhat? I mean, it's generating millions, Jeff, in ad revenue. And I mean, Twitch is born off that. And now we're seeing commercials for video games and players play video games. I mean, so I look at that industry from 10 years ago, and I feel like what you're saying, like in 10 years, we're going to look back and go, man, you were right, Jeff. I mean, I would, let's just bring it as you and I as fans. If I could watch you on Facebook Live talk, that would be interesting to me because I'm kind of a casual hockey fan. If I could see you, interact with you, that would draw me even more to watching.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I can totally see that, especially, because, I mean, you do have downtime sometimes during broadcasts. I mean, for instance, during a television broadcast, during intermission, a lot of times there's, kind of video content that's put on the actual broadcast itself, but that's an opportunity to just kind of also, for those 5 minutes, maybe jump on a Facebook Live or a Periscope or something and, kind of answer quick questions or kind of go back and forth with fans. So there is opportunities to do that. That is for sure. And I mean, if that's something that fans want, I'm sure the content creators will make it happen.
But even just having games streamed, I know that the G League is good at that. They were pretty innovative of having it on YouTube and then Facebook Live. Like, I think even minor league sports or even the big leagues should get into that game because when it's all said and done, it's all about money. And I have no issues with that. I am totally fine with business and doing what's best for business. Social media is killing it right now in business because we walk around with the business on our phones. We're walking around with the businesses, and if you can get with them, align yourself with them, I just think it's more money for everybody involved. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think these platforms have created a much lower barrier for entry for a lot of people to get in the game and kind of do things. I think it's hard to be able to break in at that ground level and be able to actually make something of yourself. I do think that becomes a little bit difficult, especially as more and more people try to, content create. But it is, I think, a good opportunity for people to kind of try things out and understand, what they're good at, maybe what they enjoy a little bit more than other things, and that's okay. I mean, absolutely, you're right. I mean, we do carry it around, and that's not good for certain things, but for other things it is.
Yeah, I know I do get overwhelmed by it too. I mean, in the same degree, it's a lot of stuff, and
I mean, from my own perspective, I deleted the Facebook app off my phone maybe 3 months ago.
yeah,
Haven't even really thought about it on my phone ever since.
yeah. So what's your go-to app? Are you Twitter?
Twitter's pretty much the only one I get on with any frequency at all.
Yeah,
And mostly, I mean, the only time I use it for the most part is just to push out news of,
yep.
teams that I'm following. Whether it's Twin City Thunder in the United States Premier Hockey League, or University of Maine, or it's the Maine Mariners, or just anything kind of that I'm related to. If there's something going on with that, then I kind of push it out on Twitter. With the radio shows account, that's a little bit different. We kind of have a little bit of fun with stuff that's happening during games, or anything like that, with that show's account. But for the most part, yeah, Twitter is the only one that I go on to with any regularity at all.
Yep. And you can follow Jeff. What's your Twitter? I should know this by now.
At Jeff Mannix.
There you go. 96.3 at thebigjab.com, where you can listen every week with your show.
And our show Twitter, by the way, is at Big Jab Saturday.
Yes, you guys.
That up there too.
Now, is the younger brother a big influence on all of that social media stuff? Teaching the old dog new tricks?
Yeah, right. I mean, we talk about that a little bit. I mean, he definitely is way more active in it than me, that's for sure. Yeah. But 11-year age difference, that'll happen.
Yep.
I mean, when I was growing up, the only home, really the only social media there was MySpace.
Yeah.
And that was basically like end of high school, early college for me. But for him, that was the beginning of middle school. So, he had a MySpace page growing up, and he got onto Facebook as soon as that became widely available. And I don't think I even got onto Facebook until, the early, 9 years ago, maybe. Yeah. So, I mean, I really tried to resist it for a long time, but and especially once I got back in with the Portland Pirates, it was real clear you got to be on social media to push things. So I was, and I remain that way. But I try to keep it to a minimum, because it just frustrates me so much. With a lot of things, and that's the unfortunate part about social media. I
agree with you.
I think people pushing opinions so much to the point where like I don't even want to see them in real life anymore, which is sad, because just because you think one way about something, I don't think should really completely change how you view that person and how you interact with them. But in certain instances it does that, and that's too bad.
Yeah, no, I've been having that same, I sometimes want to reply and I don't. I try to keep all my tweets almost like my boss is looking over my shoulder, but I've never been into trolling or all that. But I have this great idea. I used to say it a lot when I was doing baseball in Portland. I think for 24 hours, Twitter should make all your tweets video. You have to look into the camera. And I'd be interesting to see the people who tweet celebrities and talk show hosts and broadcasters, what those would be if you actually had to record it. Typing and recording, I think it'd be a good social study. I think that we wouldn't see, right?
I like your idea a lot.
Let's do it once a week, and I want to see what people actually say into the camera. Because listen, I have no problem if you believe what you're typing, then say it on audio, say it man to man, woman to woman, alien to alien. Say it to my face. But yeah, the trolling the celebrities and people who have millions, it's just dumb. And then I sometimes see them getting into it with people, and I'm like, why are you bothering with this guy? He's got, like, not to berate somebody, but if somebody's got like 10 followers and it's just some random fan, why would you even care?
Yeah.
That's the thing I don't understand. And maybe that's fake too, just to get, look at me.
Oh, sure. And I don't really get it either. And I know that's, at times I've kind of been wanted to be drawn into that and have gotten into it at times.
Yeah.
And you realize after the fact, especially, it's like, why did I even bother?
Yeah.
You know, like this made it worse, not better.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times when I see things like that now, and sometimes I do type out the reply tweet, and then I'm like, nope,
Yep.
not going there.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I wonder what Twitter thought when they developed this, if they ever thought it was going to be a good social experiment. But you mean, if you think about the idea, like, why in the world would you make a platform where people would just type out, what was the original carry? I don't know what it was.
140 originally.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the original idea,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, would you think that would take off? If I had pitched that to you before, you might say, why would anyone go on this and do that? Because I remember at first going, well, I'm just going to type out these short little things, and then what? But then the
Right.
photos, the videos, the links, and all that
Yeah.
evolved too. But you think of the original idea of it, it really is kind of weird, right?
Yeah, it kind of is, because, and it's weird because you would figure the long form way that you see on the other social platforms would be important. It was funny because once I got into the social media, I immediately liked Twitter a little bit more, just
Yeah.
because it was the small bites of things.
Yes.
And if you were going to say something there, like, it had to be within that amount of characters. Like, it actually kind of honed your writing skills a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I kind of like that element of it, as opposed to, going on Facebook and reading a 10-paragraph post from somebody. I don't necessarily want to do that, but I'm happy to read a few sentences from somebody. And if it has to go for a few tweets, that's okay. Kind of just the small little piece of it, I think, is kind of what drew me in a little bit more. And the fact that you can kind of quickly discuss things because of that character limit.
I think it's great for what we do. I mean, I know as a baseball broadcaster, having it up, we're playing the same time the Red Sox and a lot of sports, and you see breaking news and you follow certain people. It's really helped me connect with fans. I mean, I think for our business, Twitter is terrific and probably the best tool that I could have had. It would be weird not having it during a game.
I would think so now too. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm using Twitter during intermissions of my games to update what's going on,
Yeah.
to update the scoring and, this sort of thing happened, put out lineups, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, it has definitely become a tool in the toolbox now for us as broadcasters, to prepare, but also, during and after the events.
All right, so this podcast will live forever, and I want to have one final question for you about the Braves. I did pick them. I did it was a Worcester Red Sox pool. I'm going to bring it up right here. You won't be able to see it. I have Tampa Bay and Atlanta in the World Series. I have Atlanta as the champions with 42 runs scored in the World Series. I don't know why I picked that, but I think my bias to the Braves was when they played the Red Sox, and I just said when they get Albies and Acuna back, I like their young pitching. I just kind of fell for them. But wow, what a story.
Oh, absolutely. And I have been a big Atlanta Braves fan from the time I was young. I have an uncle, in fact, who lives in Atlanta, who had season tickets for a long time back in the 90s. He was great. He actually would fly me down every year. We'd go to a series, and a lot of times he'd bring me down for some playoff games too. So as a kid, I got to watch, Maddox and Glavine and Smoltz and Chipper and all those guys, and that 95 World Series was fantastic. It's frustrating to me that they didn't win more, but this Braves team this year, this is as close as I've seen to that 95 team since then. And I love watching Ronald Acuna play. His joy for baseball is fantastic. I love watching him out there every day. I love his celebrations. I love that he's jacked for his teammates, and it's fun. The team's great, and they've got a great young pitcher in Ian Anderson. My goodness, he's been so dominant in this postseason. It's been fun to watch him. And I really like the way Brian Snitker manages. A lot of people love Bobby Cox. I was not his biggest fan as a manager, but I do like Snitker an awful lot, and the way he uses his team, and the way that he puts lineups together. I love the way they're doing it, and I think this is as good a shot as they've had since they last won one to win one,
Yeah.
and it's going to be awesome if they can do it. I know that Atlanta gets maligned a little bit as a sports city sometimes, but they love the Braves,
Yep.
and that I've known forever from spending a lot of time there. And I can only tell you it will be a phenomenal party for days if the Braves are able to pull this off.
Excellent. Yeah. I will say, Jeff, for people watching, I wore my Maine whoopie pies. I haven't worn this since that game.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
In honor of you. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. One last thing, then I'll let you go.
Okay.
As you get older, I get older, I just want to be happy in what I do. Are you kind of the same way? I used to think, geez, if I don't get to the big leagues, I failed. That's when you're younger, in your 20s, you get like that. But now you just obviously get a good perspective on life. Do you kind of, and I'm probably speaking for you, but I kind of feel you definitely want to make it big, but you do want to be happy as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And I'm in a situation now where I'm extremely happy. I have a good radio show. I'm working with my brother. I'm married to a woman who is fantastic and supports me in everything that I do. We support each other. She's fantastic at a lot of the projects she's working on, and we're both kind of trying to carve out our own thing, and it's wonderful. The way I look at it is, if I'm supposed to get a big job somewhere, that'll happen.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, then that's okay. I'm doing a lot of things trying to put Maine forward as a sports destination now, and to be a part of, trying to just grow as many things in the state as possible. And if my lot ends up being kind of as a big sportscaster in the state of Maine, that's okay with me.
Yeah.
I love it here, and no matter what, we're always going to have roots here. And that's, the most important thing to me is that our state continues to grow, continues to be the leader that I think we should be. Our state motto is Dirigo, which translated from Latin means I lead. And I've always thought from the time, growing up, as a little kid in the early 80s, that is the coolest thing ever. And we do a lot of great things here, and I would like us to actually, look like we lead a little bit more with how good we do things here. And I think more and more people understand how great of a place Maine is, and why so many people want to call it home.
Well said, my friend.